Ah, the budding game developer. Once again, picking up an engine, learning it for a week, and then dropping it after too much built-up frustration. Wait, they actually finished something this time? Huh. Alright, so essentially after SGDQ and watching a few too many pirate software shorts after doom scrolling on YouTube, I decided, you know what? I've had a few far gone and pretty bad attempts at making video games before. None of them really worked out for more than a month. So, what if this time I just make the whole game in a month? Full disclosure about the title, I'm not counting the time it takes for Steam to publish the game after I submit it, since that's incredibly variable and out of my control. And also, my sleep schedule is incredibly wild, so a day counts as the time between me waking up and going to bed. As long as I had the ability to work on the game that day, since life gets in the way sometimes. I decided to boot up Godot or whatever the hell you call it. Thought of a pretty simple puzzle platformer concept where you use the Shovel Knight or DuckTales bounce for short, condensed, and puzzly levels, and then I got to work. On day one, I made the project file, followed the Brackeys tutorial while also adding in a few of my own changes where I saw fit. Don't do text drop shadows like this. Godot has a built-in function for it. I'm just really stupid. Then after I was finished, I exported my first build, then promptly added sound effects for jumping and dying. Then I implemented coyote time after rigorous Googling. On day 2, I added UI that displays the coin counter, and I made a title screen. And learning both of these things on my own took forever, but helped me a lot in the long run, I think. I also made some very rough placeholder textures to test parallax scrolling with, and it functions. I also added clouds that move on their own. I played around with audio buses for an hour because it was fun, and then I did what I was trying to do the whole time and actually implemented music changing between scenes and then persisting after death. I tried to implement checkpoints, a level select, and a coin counter that would persist throughout scene changes so I could make it into a proper score counter. But I was kind of stupid. Also, I didn't actually need checkpoints anyway, so I don't really know why I spent time on that. Don't worry about it. On day 3, I realized all the stuff I was implementing was cool and helpful, but none of it was the actual main mechanic of the game, so I should probably get to doing that. So of course, the first thing I did was I tried and failed to make slope physics, something I don't even need for the game. At least I actually bothered to implement smooth movement. I got walking down how I wanted it and way less sudden than before, but I couldn't figure out jumping for now. I attempted to code pogo physics myself for like an hour, failing miserably, so I decided tomorrow I'll just find a tutorial for jumping on enemies like Mario and then have that active when you're pressing down. I once again tried to make slope physics, once again failed, but got a little bit closer this time, and decided to write this day off as 90% unproductive. But at least I searched through some asset packs I got in bundles on itch.io years ago. To be fair, I was pretty tired and busy today, so hopefully tomorrow will be a bit more productive. On day 4, I used my hyperfixation on watching Godot videos to my advantage, and I added coins to the tile map instead of placing them manually, which immediately made the game crash. I managed to fix that by just making the UI an auto-load, which I should have done 3 days ago to be honest. Then I tried reworking the death system because I wanted it to make the player animate, and then I hit a brick wall. Because I'm dumb, I had to wait for people much more experienced than I am to get back to me on how to fix that, so I made some coin particles which look kinda nice. I finally made proper death animations thanks to our Lord and Savior, some random guy on Reddit, and I felt pretty content with how the game was pre-implementing pogo mechanics. I think jumping could be better and sliding could definitely be better, but if I hadn't made this game, I'd think it controls alright, which is pretty good for my first real video game to be honest. Either way, I'm at the point where I could just add a level clear system, make a few levels, and then I've created a better video game than any of the ones I've made previously. But I feel pretty motivated and I'm not gonna just stop there. I made the jumping feel way better, tried really hard to implement pogo mechanics, but I still couldn't, and I finally got bouncing on enemies to pretty much work, and I felt really goddamn happy. I finally got pogoing working pretty much as I intended from the start. I got it to properly decide you're not pogoing after you stop holding the button, and I got this pogoable object to disappear after being hit, and as far as I'm aware, everything else works, so I'm happy. Insanely productive day today, to be honest. Day 5 was more or less just a small adjustments day. I converted the UI to show score with coins and enemies and bounced on objects, adding a certain amount to it, with plans to make it mildly more engaging to do score attacks later with Sonic style ranks. I also tightened up the physics and polished them a ton, and made it so when you press down in midair, your spear will stay out till you hit the ground, just like Shovel Knight, because my girlfriend complained about it and I wasn't about to make her mad. I did a lot of testing, made some particles better, had some friends test it out, fixed some bugs, decided I would once again try to entirely redo slope physics. I studied the Sonic physics guide for a while, trying to think of how I'd implement something similar. I got a few very bad attempts at it in there, and I finally got slopes working how I wanted, and only when facing to the right. Unfortunately, left-facing slopes were weird in several different, increasingly fucked up ways. I got them to work by doing minus delta somehow, and even though you can still pop off the slope if you're going too fast, I felt content for today with how the character controls. So tomorrow, pause menu, variable jump height. I swear. Day 6. I did not do the pause menu or variable jump height. I tried to make it so that walking up slopes would slow you down a lot because I have a slope obsession, and, after not figuring that one out for a while, I decided to reference more Sonic code, draw some art, both conceptual and real, and make that pause screen because it's an easy W. Never mind actually, apparently Godot doesn't want to let me create a basic function that should be the easiest get of my life. It actually just wants to decide whenever I press pause to not let me unpause with the pause button for no particular reason. And any solution I come up with at most lets me pause and unpause once, and then never again. I decided for my own sanity that I'd just make it so you can only pause by pressing escape and unpause by pushing the button on screen for now, because everything has to be a problem. I did actually get it. I fixed that later. Don't worry about it. It's not like that in the final. I forgot to mention it throughout the rest of the video, sorry. I got it playing sound effects, pausing the music, and actually working entirely as I envisioned, which is an actual first for this entire project. I made the title screen look better, though it's still not final. It's just, again, a concept. And I pulled Twitter to see if I was going to be making the whole rest of the game in 32 by 32, but like technically 16 by 16 sprites, or 120 by 120. While waiting, I decided to mess around in a test scene with some example sprites I made, and got it working decently well considering most everything is just copy-pasted. Still waiting, I scrolled out some level designs in MS Paint to create later, and I added more music I can legally use through asset packs I bought a long time ago for like $10. Mostly just in case I don't feel like picking up FL Studio, because even though I've taken music theory and I know how to play the piano, I have not ever messed with any DAW. I don't know what the fuck a synthesizer is. Help me! I also added a basic level clear, though it would probably be better with, you know, actual levels, and made the title screen read continue when you finish the first level. I made a framework for loading different levels, added screen wiping when you die or leave the level, and cleaned up a bunch of code. Ready to start work on level 1 and a proper level select tomorrow, I believe. Kind of unreal I'm at a point where the game could become more of a game than a framework, and I'm not even a week out from starting. Yet, I also feel weirdly disappointed in the amount of work I got done today. I don't know why, not gonna figure out why. It's 4 AM, and I'm tired. On day 7, I started right away on making a bunch of tiles for the first world, all of which apparently look like chocolate. I'm only mildly peeved about this. I also fine-tuned the slowdown on pogoing again, added a testing button to reset your score since I don't have a level select yet, and I got the entire first level sprite sheet done. And I sprited the parallax background layers for it, sprited and coded the torches, and I started making level 1. I made it according to what the prophecy foretold, made it so the level goals could only be entered when you press up, and they're also using Soggy Cat as a placeholder because that's awesome. And I made ladders at least kinda work, and then I called it a night. You might think this day was light on work, but in actuality most of this was just setting up to be able to do the entirety of World 1 next time, which I can do now. Yippee! First thing I did on day 8 was take a bunch of notes on stuff that pretty much came to me in a dream. Essentially, I just remembered how to do things correctly and wanted to rewrite a bunch of code to implement it. Before I actually did that, since it would take forever, I decided to make ladders a little more polished, and then I decided to make more assets to finish up the first level and make building the rest of the levels easier. By the way, I have no clue what the fuck came to me in a dream. I literally don't remember. I don't think I actually wrote it down. I literally don't know what that was, and I don't think I ever implemented it, and I don't mention it in the rest of the doc. What did I mean by that? I added fences, posts to hold torches up, arrows, and gave the torches lighting, and then I decided to finally move on to level 2. I made a training dummy, which I'll also be using in the prologue later, to introduce the concept of pogoing, and I still haven't made the prologue at the time of recording. Oops. I made it groove. Then I started making level 2. After finishing that up, I now have 30 seconds of mostly final video game done after more than a week of development, and we're so back. I fully sprited the main characters so I could actually start fine-tuning their animations and physics, and patched a few bugs, and I tried giving them a cape as a physics object, which didn't go so well. And I decided, yeah, I'll just sprite it manually. They looked pretty janky at first, so I decided I would look and see how Super Mario World does it, and oh, that's like a few hundred sprites just for the cape that are made for every single scenario Mario could possibly be in, with several sprites for each one. Oh, huh. After realizing how much work I had ahead of me if I couldn't figure out a better solution, I called it a night. I had been working on this game for like 6 to 10 hours a day every day at this point. I felt pretty tired and very demotivated, so we'll see how I'm feeling tomorrow. At the start of day 9, I can't say I was feeling much better, just caffeinated. So I decided to give another alternative solution a shot. Namely, I found this post on Reddit by Noelle Berry on how they did Madeline's hair in Celeste, which is pretty similar to what I'd want with the cape, so I might as well give it a shot and try to replicate that in Godot. I also found a video on how to replicate that in Godot. This video is several years old though, so it should probably work as a pretty good reference point. Never mind, it wasn't at all, and it would only work if I restructured my entire game, put in extra effort to make it look how I want, and even then, it wouldn't be great. So, that was a good waste of 3 hours of my life. Then I randomly looked through the asset library and I found a plugin called Wiggly Appended by Tomeno and Aaron Frank, and it was quite literally the exact solution to my problem. God, I love programming. Anyways, after that dumb, several day long toil over literally nothing, Bob finally has his cape, and I decided to go and patch some stuff my friends found while playtesting, namely pause menu bugs, and I made a third level, and I just kinda took a step back for a minute. I realized the mechanics I have currently wouldn't make for an interesting level design for the entire first world, so I decided, screw it, we're adding a double bounce. This bounce only happens when you've charged your spear on a blue object, with each level gimmick now and in the future getting a blue variant. I think this will make for way better level and puzzle design for both World 1 and every future world, and just the implementation of it has reinvigorated my drive for level design. I made a fourth level naturally introducing the concept of blue torches that lets the player figure it out for themselves, and then I made a fifth level testing how much they'd been paying attention to the arrows in the background plus the blue fire. Then, just for fun, I mean a very difficult Kaizo level just because I want to annoy my playtesters and /or friends, depends on how they feel after, and that was a pretty damn good amount of work for today, so I called it a night. On day 10 I began immediately by moving that last level to the bonus world just because it's a little too difficult. My friends might hate me now. And then I started working on a level teaching how to preserve your super bounce by not touching the ground, then I made level 7, then I made level 8, and I think you get the point by now. I thought up the most atrocious level design ever, and then I scrapped that one, and then I made more levels. I got about 11 levels plus the bonus level, and I felt pretty satisfied with where the game is at this point. And at least before I implement cutscenes and whatnot, it feels pretty finished. I think the only thing to do now is to get more people to test the game, ask them if the progression feels good and natural, and then start work on World 2, cutscenes, and definitely a level select. And maybe the prologue that, again, at the time of recording, I still have not made. Feels good. Today's log looks short, but it was a lot of work designing levels that are like, good, and I had extra work to do outside of just designing game all day. On day 11, I did more playtesting, zoomed out the camera in a few levels, fixed the parallax bugs that came with that, made a goal clear, made the cape look a little better, and I made sound effects always play when you do something, namely pogoing, and started work on the level select menu. It looks incredibly scuffed currently, but it works. It sets the framework for a prettier one later. I never did make that. That's all you really need when you're showing your game to less than 10 people, I suppose. It is now exposed to several hundred people and it still looks exactly as janky.
CutieMonica with 500 bits said, "Hi Thor, just wanted to say I got stuck in the ADHD trap of watching YT shorts forever, and your videos are what inspired me to get off my ass, boot up Godot, and I've been focused incredibly hard making a game the past 9 days.
Good.
Thank you for what you do less than 3.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah.
And then I started the weirdly long and hard process of making a save system. Even though I literally only need to save one single variable right now, it's still super hard and frustrating, and that made me decide to shelve it for later because it's 5 AM and I'm tired. I didn't do too much today, mostly just because I wanted to take a tiny bit of a break, but it is what it is. On day 12, I worked with my girlfriend to make some very nice looking ranks in UI. B was somehow the hardest one to make, and after getting some work done, I was able to start game dev stuff at the early hour of 7:40 PM. Starting the sprite work for World 2. At the crisp hour of 12:13 AM, I'm still not done spreading the basic tiles for World 2. Rocks are hard. At least Wife had the UI pretty much done. At the brisk time of 1:42 AM, I had the basic tiles all done. I sprited the dart traps and started work on a new level for World 1, so it had a cleaner progression in 12 levels in total, because god, why did I ever think it was a good idea to leave it at 11? I made a weirdly high effort background for a placeholder, went through a bunch of different variations that didn't quite look right, and I had to sprite more rocks, and I finally had something that looks good. We ball! I started work on the dart traps, worked on implementing my girlfriend's textures on the title screen, and at this point, it's 7 AM, I've been working on assets all day, and I have barely eaten, so I should probably fix some of that. Okay, it's 8 AM, I've decided to unfuck my sleep schedule, so I guess we can call this day 13 since I haven't slept. Okay, day 13 for real. I ended up passing out for 6 hours. I haven't got much work done. I felt kind of sick and weird. I don't know if I'm going to work on the game at all. Also, half the world just got crowd-striked, so that's something. I fixed a bug with the level select, then decided to not work on the rest of the game today. I'm sick. I've only got a few hours of rest, and I feel gross, and I need to take a break. I've been working on the game for 6 to 10 hours each day, and I've been trying to balance that with the work that actually gives me money, plus doing shit with my friends, and I'm just tired as all hell. I just want to say, if you're ever working on something that doesn't have a deadline, while it can be nice to focus hard on it sometimes, please don't overwork yourself. This is just for a really dumb video, and I really should have spread out the work a bit more. And taking a break isn't a failure. You're allowed to do so. Alright, now that that's out of the way, day 14, let's get some shit done. I started slapping together the dart traps, trying real hard to make them work how I want, to various degrees of success, and then after several hours of trying, I have the first World 2 level essentially finished. I still need a ton of polish on the dart traps, namely them only firing after pressing the button twice for some reason, and I fixed movement being a bit sluggish. Then I made ladders better, I finally finished up the dart traps, I added some sound effects and animation, and now they look pretty decent. I made a level 1 introducing the concept of dart traps safely, made a level 2 introducing them flying upwards and forcing you to use it as an elevator, a third level teaching you to ride arrows horizontally, and at this point, I've been working on the dart traps for so long that I spent at least 5 hours just on making them work right, and it is 5 AM. Oops! I made a Twitter account for the game, which you should go follow, and at least a framework for the entirety of World 2 is done now. We're making good progress at a world per week, more or less. Let's get this going and have at least 3 worlds when we drop on Steam. I did mention the title of this video is referring to the Blade Bounce demo, right? Like, you didn't expect me to slap together and playtest the entire 8 worlds I have planned with all the unique level design, gimmicks, cutscenes, and all of it planned out intricately in the Discord channel that only I'm in, all within the span of the next 2 weeks, right? Surely not. On day 15, I started work on more levels, made a bunch of sprite variants, and I tried my best while making levels 4 and 5, and I also just realized for the entirety of World 2 I haven't had to look anything up, and this has all been off my own experience and intuition on how to program these things, and that's pretty cool, I think. I'm actually learning something. I fixed the level select for about the 80th time, and I've nearly filled the entire sprite sheet. And then I decided after making 7 levels and making arrows glow when on fire, to focus on getting some work done today, since I do in fact need money to live. If you want me to focus harder on the game and not need as much money to live, my Ko-Fi is linked down below. Just a thought, halfway there to the demo release, and I'm feeling pretty confident. I started off day 16 by getting more work done because, again, money, but then I started work on the game later in the day, started right away by making up-facing blue dart trap. Dear God, there better be a better way to do this. I have 6 different dart trap scenes, but yeah, it works. Anyways, I made a really cool 8th level, tried really hard to get a clip on one, made a 9th level and a 10th, and then it was 3 AM. I've made a lot of progress, I'd say more than 50% the way there to where I want to be before I make the demo public, which is kinda neat. Comparing the state the game is in right now as opposed to what it was like 10 days ago is kinda crazy. Day 17 started with me going to visit family, then having to get more work done, so not too much work is gonna be done on the game unfortunately. Regardless, I did some playtesting with people who had never played the game before, which is quite nice. Then I fixed the death animation not playing while pogoing, finished up the 11th and 12th levels, which is the same amount as in World 1, and World 2 is essentially gameplay content complete. My plan is to finish up the gameplay on the first 3 worlds, polish them as much as possible before the 30 days is over, then package that up as the demo. I think it's working out so far. Tomorrow will probably be another light on content day, since I really need to lock in on work and I'm gonna be busy for most of the afternoon, but hopefully I'll find the time to spread a ton of stuff for World 3 soon. Hey, day 18 and I was not lying. It's 10 PM and I'm just now starting work on the game. Oops. Decided to focus on small things for now, so this day won't be too exciting. Namely, I made arrows not collide with each other or with pressure plates, made a cool ass bonus 2 level, made buttons not trigger multiple times when you walk over them, finally redrew the temp background, started working on making the arrows not make a horrendously loud noise when fired all at once, somewhat fixed that, implemented the new bonus level, and then the missile was very eepy. I converted all the music to .ogg so now my file size isn't ridiculous, and then I went to bed. Day 19. First things first, I made the arrow noises more consistent. I did a bit of playtesting and found out a blind playthrough of what I currently have takes about 30 minutes to an hour, which is pretty damn good for a demo, and now I'm not too worried about getting a ton more content in before the month is over. I made an attempt to start World 3 sprites, but inspiration was just not coming to me, and I felt so ill and tired from moving furniture that I could not even push myself to finish an article for work today. God damn, I'm on a losing streak. I decided to take it easy today, as staring at the blindingly white Google, I got a new roach. as staring at the blindingly white Google Doc is hurting my eyes. Day 20, haven't gotten much work done the past few days, so I'm determined to fix that by at least polishing Worlds 1 and 2 until I can reasonably call them finished. The first thing to do is animations for climbing ladders and entering doors, which I haven't done just because I didn't feel like programming the cape moving in front of the player, even though I could easily do that with the animation player. But hey man, hindsight is 2020 and currently it's 2024, so I missed my mark by about 4 years. I got them working, made some star particles for goal clearing, and felt pretty good about the state of the game. I also pulled off this sick-ass speedrun. I added controller support to the UI so the game is finally fully playable on controller, which is very annoying. I finally implemented a save system that functions enough, and I decided to call it a day now that these first two worlds feel incredibly polished and this is looking more and more like a real video game. World 3 tomorrow, probably. Day 21. First thing I did was not work on World 3. Instead, I downloaded the Phantom camera plugin because I wanted to mess around with it to make the camera in-game a little better. I didn't end up doing that. I struggled with the sprites for another few hours, and I finally got something good going after a massive struggle to make anything. And otherwise, I did not achieve anything today. Cool! 10 days left, by the way. I had a lot of work today. My fault. Day 22, I exclusively worked on sprites for World 3 now that I've got a solid idea of what I want to do, and that was all I did. I haven't gotten the entire tile set done yet, and I'll likely work on that and finishing up the main level gimmick and starting to build some levels tomorrow. I want this to be pretty as fuck, so I gotta lock in. On day 23, I started work on the main level gimmicks and then I sprayed a bit more, but I spent a majority of the day working my job. I have things in a position where I finally should be able to begin work on World 3 proper tomorrow. Hopefully. For real this time. Probably. I hope. Day 24 started with, who could have guessed, more spriting! Tweaking the sprites I'd already made and made it start to come together at least a little bit. I hope I can get this done by the end of the month, but if I don't, I'll just launch the demo with Worlds 1 and 2, then patch this world into the demo later. Still gonna be like an hour of content regardless, so I won't feel too bad. Most of these sprites are temporary, but the mechanics are there, so that's epic. I can technically start making levels, but I really should make platforms, finish the filler and backgrounds, and animate a bunch of stuff, among other things, but the framework is done at least. Good night. Day 25 began with me finishing up the background for the Crystal Caverns, made a bunch of decor, implemented everything, and now I have a decent level aesthetic going that I can easily tweak later. I had the first level practically finished, and hopefully the next few should be quite shrimple. I drew up a bunch of level designs ready to be made next time I boot up the project, but unfortunately, I was quite busy once again, so here we are. On day 26, I made level 2, I added lights to the crystals, did level 3, level 4, and you get the idea. I'm not going to be showing too much of these levels since they're getting pretty puzzle-centric and you can, go play the game for free instead of being spoiled here, but it was pretty fun trying to design puzzles that required a bit more brain thinking for once instead of things that are more so mechanically difficult. I got 6 levels in, had work to do, and then got hit with the tired EP. But at least the world is halfway content complete now. Unfortunately, on day 27, I'm having the realization that the further we get into this project, the less time I have to commit to it. I'm still pretty certain I'll have the game ready for a Steam release by the 31st, also because I'm going full send into quality of life, UI, and other general improvements on day 29, even if World 3 isn't done yet. That's the plan at least. For now, I did a shit ton of work today, started work on level 7, and I made all the levels actually playable in-game, with 7 being a fairly complex level. Then I got a headache, I went to bed. My fault. At least a majority of the world is done, and if I've got time tomorrow, it shouldn't be hard to do the rest. Day 28, you might notice the date on my computer is slightly off, and that's because the past few days I've had several power outages, and I had family over, and my sink broke, among several other issues, and I still had work to do. So I had zero chance to actually work on anything, and I didn't even add anything. So considering all of that was out of my control, this is technically day 28 now. Trust. I started out by sprouting an actual level clear for the Crystal Caverns. Making level 8, I added sounds for spikes breaking, I made the crystals show damage when hit, I made a somewhat rough level 9 that I may change completely in the future, drafted up a level 10 and have hit a very heavy roadblock where, for some reason, I just really don't feel like doing level designs. Everything is subject to change, so it doesn't really bother me if they're not up to my standards right now. They just aren't really flowing as much as art and programming and the rest of designing has. I don't know. I think it's just a pretty natural part of the game dev process to just suddenly decide that you don't want to do something that day, but given I only have a month, I kind of need to lock in on a very important, crucial aspect, but my brain just decided not to, so we're not. I finished level 10, and I had a massive migraine, and I decided to call it a night. I'm going to be focusing on polish and quality of life for the rest of this, but if I feel ideas flow for the next 3 levels, I won't hesitate to make them. On day 29, I fixed up the cape a bit more, made the background in the back of the crystal caverns change color, made the menus include the new World 3 levels and hopefully made them work a bit better, polished up the World 3 tile set, made Bob fit in better with the environment, fixed some bugs and did some playtesting, polishing, and did some other small things that are really hard to write about without sounding lame as hell. Day 30 is another that got delayed by a day due to forces outside my control, but I started drafting up some rough logo concepts, worked on a settings menu, tried to implement a cleaner font for accessibility which wasn't working out, but I decided to just scrap that because there's not really any text in the game that matters, sorry. I also can't seem to figure out how to get the game to save your settings, but for now I just decided to polish up all the UI, make a credits menu, change up some text to make things more clear, and I've already cleared half my checklist. Cool. I still haven't figured out how to get the game to save your settings as of recording this, by the way. Sorry. It is 6 a.m., and I have a feeling I'll be staying up to a similar time tomorrow, so I might as well go get some rest. Day 31, the final day of game development. I started up by patching a few bugs I found the night before, and doing some playtests. I patched a few more bugs, cleaned up the crystal sprites, started redrawing the title screen while my girlfriend played Balatro since it's looked bad for weeks. I made a better logo, then realized I wasn't gonna have everything done if I slept. And given it's 6 a.m. and my rules state that a day only counts after I sleep, it's time for an all-nighter. Small disclaimer, this is for my dumb stupid challenge and you should not do this, but here we go! I made a temporary splash screen that'll have to do for now because I really could not get the drawing juices flowing. I struggled really hard at drawing the Twitter logo because I refused to make it an X, then I did the same for Ko-Fi, which I had to change to a Discord button because Steam said so, and then I actually set up the Discord server after making the button. I also lied earlier when I said I'd cap off World 3 on the 29th because here I am making level 11, and level 12, and the 3rd bonus level, which is absolutely evil and devious. I added them to the level select, did a final round of polish and testing, and I added a screen just for the demo. And finally, I am probably done. After a quick export at the crisp hour of 2 p.m., it feels nice to have something resembling a finished game. Good night. After that was done, while making the assets for Steam and going through all the processes to get it published, I still decided to make some small tweaks based on feedback, nothing major, since the idea still is that I made something I'd be okay pushing to Steam in a month, and that's still true. I'd just like it to be the best it can be, you know? And by that, I mean I redid the lighting, the character sprites, some level design, the background tiles, completely changed the aesthetic of World 2, and overhauled the camera. I may be dedicated to this game now, and this video just took a while to make. I still did push the 31-day version of this game to Steam, but it'll be very different by the time you're watching the video, so if you want, head to the Discord server and check the pins and announcements to play the Day 31 build. Otherwise, hop on the updated version since I feel it's significantly better now. I'd also like to mention, in between the time between making this and the video actually coming out, I decided to participate in the GMTK Game Jam 2024, and I got like top 300, which is kind of an insane result for the biggest game jam ever as my first game jam, so if you want a video on that, just let me know. On top of that, Next Fest is coming up and Blade Bounce is going to be a part of it, so if you want to go wishlist it or play the demo as a part of that, go ahead. Thank you for watching this wild experience I went through. I've always wanted to do game development since I was a child, and this felt like proper wish fulfillment since for once, I'm actually really enjoying it. If you want to make a game, genuinely just go do it. Blade Bounce so far has cost me $0 to make. The only significant monetary investment was getting it on Steam, which is incredibly unnecessary for my first full game and was genuinely just for the video title, since itch.io, exists. Regardless, everything I used to create it was either free, from asset packs I already owned from bundles that cost like $5, or were made by me. So genuinely, the only thing stopping you from making the game you want to make is the fact you haven't started yet. So go start. Boot up Godot, Unity, Unreal, Game Maker, or whatever you want, and just make something. You'll do great. I'm sure of it. Don't let my prior experience, with art, design, and writing of course, almost nothing else, scare you off. You can make a game with bad graphics, bad writing, bad most things, as long as it's unique and it's an idea you're passionate about. It'll be great, I promise. All that having been said, thank you for watching, and please go wishlist the game if you enjoyed this wild-ass experience.